Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Human Narratives. This is your host, Dorinda. It is a pleasure to be back. But before we get started, I wanted to be able to get into the groove through music. And of course, I have Johnny Drill here. How are you, my friend? Let's jam a little bit to it before we get started into the topic. All right, let's go. How are you, my friend? Amazing. Woo! All right, so I'm in the groove, like I said. All it takes sometimes is music, right? So, like I said, welcome to the Human Narratives. And I started off with that song for the main purpose of today's topic, which is on happiness. What is happiness? It is, of course, can be defined in so many different ways by so many different people, right? Including myself. So, of course, happiness, like I said, is a complex of ways that one may define it, right? Of emotional state. And it's sometimes, you know, shown through our emotions, our feelings of joy, of, feeling content and also being fulfilled. I like that word, fulfilled, and also content, right? Um, so it can come from various sources and many different places. Uh, One may focus on their personal achievements as a source of happiness. Others may focus on their relationships and a sense of different areas in life, right? One may even focus on the sense of purpose. Why are they here? And being able to identify that purpose creates a sense of happiness for a person's life or an individual, right? So, happiness is basics. For me, I think it's a simple thing that you have to be able to create internally, right? But it takes a lot of work to be able to do so. So don't assume that it's easy for one to just get there. It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of error. And even when you do feel like you have done the work, it's still work or works that require in the process of still being able to maintain that happiness or peace when you feel like you've arrived in that space, right? So how do people in different places, define or pursue happiness? Um, in the Western culture, of course, a lot of times our happiness is tend to um, associated with just being an individual, right? We focus on personal achievements, self fulfillment, and all of those things. And we pursue happiness through our career and successes and personal relationships and through just different hobbies and passions and things that we tend to do out there that brings that sense of happiness for us. And in Easter culture, it's more of influenced by community, that sense of balance, right? Like the Buddhist sense of happiness is from being fulfilled, having some sense of a social role, that purpose that I talked about earlier. Maintaining maybe family, not maybe, maintaining family relationships, maintaining personal healthy relationships as well, right? And achieving inner peace rather than just that individual achievement that one may focus on in other cultures, or like I define in the Western culture. So and of course in indigenous cultures, or culture, they may focus more on interconnectedness with nature, with spirituality, with well-being, and the pursuit through rituals and community gatherings and those type of deep respect for environment connectedness that one may share within those spaces. So like I said, it's all defined differently. Happiness is differently, defined universally among human experiences, and as a result, we all can experience it differently. So Let's see. How do cultural celebrations tend to influence, one's perception or people's perception of happiness? Um, I mean, culture play a huge part in one's upbringing, and even the way we tend to live as adults. It shapes how we also influence other people as well, right? But culture definitely can influence happiness in various ways and the perception of people in various ways. Community connection, celebrating, bring people together. This bring some sense of belonging and also a sense of community. And it also enhances feelings of being happy, right? And it share experiences which strengthen relationships and bond between families, friends, and neighbors. And you can also look at the traditional aspect of things, right? Where values, history, identity, you participate through these different events to create a common sense of pride and to also continue this tradition that is respected and is valued. So it contributes to that individual and also sense, but also the collective sense of a community that create that happiness for that individual in that space, right? um, we also can have joyful experiences, right? Joyful experiences like music. I just started this podcast sharing one of the way I create happiness in my life is, through music, just being able to listen to beautiful songs that uplift my soul, my spirit, and get me in a good mood, no matter what's going on. Turn on that music, I'm jamming, you know? Um, let's see. So, joyful experiences, music, dance, food, and festivities, and all of those things. I had a lot of festivities or the food and drink incident yesterday that kept me a little down this morning, but I'm back up, So, but these positive experiences can then uplift our experience, uplift our individual spirits, our individual sense, and also enhance our mood, how we feel on a day-to-day basis, right? And it leads to a greater sense of happiness overall. So I hope that's something that all of us out there are working towards in achieving for yourself. Because I always say that anything, whether it's happiness, forgiveness, love, all these beautiful things that we tend to work so hard to give to other people, it's really important that it starts from inside of you, right? From you. Because if it doesn't start internally, how can you really know how to give it to somebody else, and how do you really know when you do receive it if that's really what love is for you or what happiness is for you or whatever the topic on the table would be in whatever situation, right? So it must start with you. So work hard and being able to identify. I was looking at something the other day on a TikTok video, and it says that those areas in which we are very uncomfortable with, those places that we tend not to mirror ourselves and look at, those are the areas that tend to allow us to be very vulnerable. And if we allow ourselves to go in those different places and really work and understand with empathy, it allows us to create that sense of happiness that we tend to shy or hide away from, not only ourselves unconsciously, but also through the world, because those are the places that are vulnerable. And we don't want to be vulnerable, especially, places we're not safe, right? But create that space where, you can look at those areas in your life and through mirrors and be honest with yourself and be vulnerable because you deserve to be able to experience that sense of happiness. It's not easy work, but it's good work, and it's beautiful work. So it can be done through generosity and kindness, right? Many cultures celebration or they emphasize generosity as, through sharing kindness. They engage in different type of activities to boost happiness and give back overall, right? So I've talked a little bit about what happiness is, what perception around happiness may involve in different cultures and in different areas. So, internally, I just spoke about happiness, right? So, happiness is influenced by different factors, but also internal and external factors, right? So, our personal traits, the things that if we're optimist, if we are resilient, if you are a type of person who, have a sense of emotional stability, but also emotional intelligence, right? That's important too, as well. And the individual who can experience higher level, these are individuals who can tend to experience higher level of happiness internally, but not just the personality traits but the mindset. And this can include, like, just having a positive mindset and the ability to practice gratitude, or just being able to uplift yourself, like I said, even in the most difficult moments in time, not always relying or depending on other people to do that. It's great to have a wonderful support system, but also be able to learn how to be your number one cheerleader when you need to, right? So having that positive mindset and the ability to practice gratitude is amazing. Just getting up and look at beautiful things that are going right in your life, that enhance a sense of happiness in one's life, and it tends to allow us to focus or distract us from the stressors, and allow us to be able to, for 1 or 2 minutes or seconds or whatever that may give us, to focus on that positivity. uh, Sometimes it can also be genetic, right? Sometimes people who have exposed to individual who are raised in that type of environments would encourage, and that's a level of some individual natural predisposition to higher or level lower level of happiness. Like, if it's a place where it's not encouraged or where sadness is often experienced, then there's going to be low sense of happiness in that environment. So mental health, right? Mental health internally plays a huge factor, our well-being, including the absence of anxiety and depression. That's crucial in being able to have living a happy life. But if you are diagnosed or experiencing any of those symptoms or diagnosis, it doesn't mean that you still cannot have a happy life. You can still have a happy life. You can still have a beautiful life. There are things that must be done to be able to take care of yourself and create that space for yourself. And those things may be, seeing a therapist or being on medication, or, prioritizing self care, doing the things, focusing on yourself, and prioritizing you to be able to pour out into other people as well. So those type of things help as well. What are external factors that tend to contribute or influence uh, one's happiness? Relationships, one having strong social connections and supportive relationships, that's are important, whether it's community, family, friends, that hence has sense of happiness and belonging, right? Life circumstances also contributes to external factors, in as one happiness may be influenced by those things as well. If our income, our employment status last week, or I talked about money, so check that episode out, that focus on money and ways you can invest and all of those things, or consider investing, options that are there, or how you prefer to save or manage your money. So and living condition can also influence one's happiness, right? If when you have financial stability, and that contributes to one's well-being, and it can be a determinant for a person's sense of happiness. uh, Cultural context, right? I talked earlier about culture as well, that norms that shapes individuals perceptions. And I talked about it, even we grow up as adult becoming and still being influenced by those things as well, right? Different cultures prioritize various aspects of life, including one's level of happiness, your health. If you have significant healthy well-being, you tend to have a happy, you know you tend to be happy or create a sense of happiness. So those are things that can contribute, even if one may not be, right? So those are external factors that can contribute to happiness. So your physical health plays significant role in your happiness, right? So if you have chronic illness, if have other type of medical illness that interfere with your day-to-day life and quality of life, it can impact how one live, whether happy or not. So work-life balance, right? That's an area that's a challenge for me, many people out there. So just being able to have a fulfilling job, but also being able to have a healthy work balance that enhance your sense of happiness. And sometimes it may require making sacrifices, so that you can enhance your well-being, and just having faith, right, in those decision-making processes as well, and believing in yourself as well, because that's pertinent. Um, our life events, such as loss, can influence one's happiness, birth, like living, and all of those things. So all of those things can impact environmental factors, including if we feel safe or if we don't feel safe in our environment, if we feel like um, if we feel like we are in an environment where we are protected, or if we feel like we're not in an environment where we're not protected. All those things can impact one happiness. What are the psychological effects of happiness? I want to talk about that. That's the awesome part, right? I mean, all of those other things that I spoke about is pretty beautiful, but let's talk about the psychological effects of happiness. I mean, it improves your mental health. You People tends who are not, happiness is associated with lower level of anxiety, depression, and stress, like I mentioned earlier. But it also improve your mental health. It enhance your coping skills. Like I said, you're able to self-regulate even in challenging situations. Emotional regulation is very important, right? To be able to pull yourself back, no matter what is going on. And I know sometimes it's difficult. We're humans, we're not perfect, right? And there are days where we may not be able to, but it's something that we can always work on, as well. So it increase, our coping skills, to face challenging situations and navigate through difficult these, more effectively. It increase our motivation to want to be productive, and pursue our goal and engage in the things that we want and we want to enjoy in life. That bring fulfillment. It's also create us. It causes us to be creative, right? When you're in your happy space, you can become a poet, you can become a songwriter, you can become a musician. I don't know if the voice might make it to the stage. Well, mine won't, but well, in the singing way. But it can bring creativity out of one that you tend not to have when you're unhappy, right? So it also, bring a stronger relationships in your life, because it fosters those social connection that enhances those type of personal spaces that are about positivity and bringing that, encouraging that type of compassionate, cooperation that leads into a healthier social interaction, right? So it increases higher life satisfaction. People who are happier tends to be more content, and resilience, and being able to adapt as well. Healthier makes healthier lifestyle choices. And also it's increased longevity as well, right? You live longer. Positive emotions are linked to better health outcomes and a lower risk of chronic diseases. I mean, I always say it takes so much emotions to be upset, so many emotions to be upset. Whew, I prefer to just be happy. I know most days or some days that's not always possible because we're humans, but you have to thrive. you have to thrive and ensure that that is a goal for you every day, your happiness, right? We work hard for a lot of different things every day in our lives that serves us no good, and not making time for the things that do. So taking time to invest into yourself, creating that space for you to be safe emotionally for yourself, so that you can be safe for everybody else, right, or for people around you. um, or showing up mostly for you if you need to, building that space until you can show up for people, as well. So it enhances one's self-esteem, in so many ways. um, you know uh, it boosts your self-esteem, your self-worth. You feel happy, you feel positive self-image, and you're more confident in your abilities. And overall, happiness is a cycle, and it's a positive emotions, and it leads to a lot of positive things internally and externally. Better mental health, better well-being, better connection with people around you socially, even as yourself, not being able to connect with yourself and being able to foster that sense of happiness. This is beautiful. So like I said, if it's something that you're able to create for you, work on it. It's not easy. A lot of times we search in so many different places for it, and we're still feeling void, right? You're feeling void, or we're feeling void because we're still looking at places when all we need to do is just take a sip, or glance of that mirror, internally, of those places that we've been avoiding, and that we've not made time to address individually, and really love on those spaces. And it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Just being able to love on those spaces and being able to be vulnerable and knowing who you are, and building yourself from there, it's most important, right? And because it allows you to understand who you are, and being able to present yourself, like I said earlier, adopting your in different places, but not having to change, not having to change who you are all the time to fit into those different spaces, right? Because that void keep getting deeper and deeper if you have to do that. So let's work. If we're not fulfilled, if we are, there are things in our areas in our life that's not creating us to be happy, let's work on building in those different places, because you deserve to be happy. I deserve to be happy. Everyone deserves to be happy, but it's something that you have to work for, and it cannot be the responsibility of somebody else, right? Sometimes we put it on in relationship, we put it on the next person to do it for us. We want someone else to make us smile, we want someone else to make our inside feel a certain way. You start doing those things for you, so that when you do meet someone that will add to all of those beautiful things that's already going on in there, it becomes balanced, it becomes equal, it becomes beautiful. And it's not a hard work where one source is just pouring out and pouring out to create this balance, because the other source is just not willing to work on creating that balance, right? The equation doesn't work well. So put the numbers that work best and work well and create balance for both. But overall, thank you for tuning in today. This is your girl, Dorinda. It is always a pleasure. And create your sense of happiness, because you deserve it. Much love and respect. Always.